What is up everyone, and welcome back to some more F1 24 driver career mode, and we are here for round number 2 of season 1 of our team career at Haas. I am very much looking forward to this one. We are going to be at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for this race. If you haven't watched the last video, please do check it out, because despite what you're seeing about there being an ERS fault, we still managed to have an absolutely fantastic race. We started P4 on the grid, having had an absolutely incredible qualifying session, and we managed to hold on to some very good points in the race to finish 6th in a Haas. I was incredibly happy with that, showcasing that perhaps we have some pretty good pace. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best of results for Nico Hülkenberg. Qualified 18th, I believe it was, came through the field, but only to 15th. So yeah, pretty nothing burger there for Nico Hülkenberg. Hopefully he'll be able to have a better weekend of things this time in Saudi Arabia. So here we are, we're getting to see a few of the different specialist goals that we'll be able to set for ourselves over the course of the weekend. You can see I've already taken a few there, and then we got one more from the strategy analyst here, which I'm going to go for the bottom goal, completing a practice program. I would rather do that than do the race strategy program twice on 2 different types of tyres. That doesn't make any sense to me to do that, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, we're not going to bother with that one, and we are going to move on from there to the next few things we've got to do before we get into the weekend. I've set the strategy analyst to be my primary specialist because I saw that you can get more resource points that way if you boost her like sort of perks that she gives you. So that was my thought process there. You can see we're going through all of this stuff. We got our rivalry with Nico Hülkenberg, which we are comfortably leading. We out-qualified him, out-raced him, outperformed him, all of that kind of thing. The only thing that we're not leading on is podium finishes, which let me tell you right now, if either me or Hülkenberg get a podium finish this season, we deserve to win the rivalry right then and there, quite frankly, because that is absolutely astounding, the idea that either of us might be on for a podium at some point this season. The car is not there at all. We are currently the 8th best car on the grid, just behind Alpine, RB a little bit further ahead of us, and then the top 5 teams still a long way ahead. So yeah, no cause to change any of the vehicle parts yet. You can see the drivers and constructors standing here. We're obviously 6th, having finished 6th, and then you've got Haas in 4th in the constructors, having scored 8 points ahead of Red Bull. Max Verstappen currently is plumb last in the Drivers' Championship, having been the only driver to suffer a DNF in the Bahrain Grand Prix. And yeah, as a result of that, that meant that, of course, the Red Bulls ended up not scoring very many points. We're going to get a bit of research on the go. Hopefully we'll be able to get this one done before the Australian Grand Prix. I am rushing it because I do think that there is a very good chance that we'll be able to get more upgrades on the car, which maybe will allow us to really start to push for both cars in the points maybe in Australia rather than just myself. And yeah, here we are. Now we're going to be getting into the practice session this weekend. I'm still not ready for there to be you know, voice lines in the intro cutscenes to practice and qualifying, so that's throwing me off a little bit. But yeah, in terms of how things actually went in practice, I have to say I wasn't overly enthused with my pace, but I mean we were in the same boat in Bahrain, and of course we know what happened there. Things went very well. So yeah, only P18 today, but I was 3/10 off of Alex Albon in Bahrain in practice, and we ended up getting a very good result there. So I'm hoping that as we make our way into qualifying, we'll be able to have another good result.
To Jeddah Corniche, one of the fastest circuits on the calendar, but let's see who will be the fastest of them all. It's time to set the grid for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Yes, it's time for qualifying.
So yeah, we are going to be getting into qualifying. The aim here, as always, is just going to be qualify ahead of Nico Hülkenberg and then see how well we can do from there. So as we make our way around, we are on our first flying lap on a set of fresh soft compound tyres. And yeah, I'm not sure what the lap times that everyone else has set so far, but we're about to see exactly what we can do here as we cross the line. It's a 1:30.4. We are 0.3 of a second off of Max Verstappen at the moment, but ahead of Sergio Perez. So I saw that and I was like, okay, we may be in for another good session here today. As we go on to our second flying lap here, you can see that lap time we did initially was good enough for P6 anyway, and we are actually improving here by 0.3 of a second as well. So it looks like we're going to have a very, very good lap here as we cross the line into the 129s, and that is going to be good enough to see us through to Q2 in P1, which is absolutely unbelievable. Just to give you guys an idea of what's going on, we're now on 103 AI difficulty. I actually bumped the difficulty up by 1 off the back of the previous race where we did really well. I was like, okay, we'll bump up the difficulty, we'll go from there. And yeah, somehow we're still through with ease. We finished first, for goodness sake. Meanwhile, Hulkenberg, 2,000ths of a second, oh no, 200ths of a second off making it through to Q2 behind Alex Albon, but he gets knocked out along with Ocon, Bottas, Joe, and Sargent. But yeah, my sort of rationale for difficulty on this year's game is going to be in the ending screen. They have expected position for the race, and my mindset is going to be, if I finish within 2 positions of that expected position, we will not change the difficulty. If I finish more than 2 lower, then I'll lower the difficulty, obviously, and if I finish more than 2 higher, then I'll up the difficulty. And we finished 10 positions higher than our expected position last time, so yeah, obviously that will be a bump up for this one, and it looks like we may have to bump it up again after this weekend if things are to be believed, because my first flying lap on a used set of soft compound tyres was still good enough to get us through in P9 alone, but we crossed the line on the fresh set of soft compound tyres to do a 1:29.6, and that is another first place in qualifying. So there's back-to-back first places in Q1 and Q2. Could we, in our second race in Formula 1, get our first pole position? Yes, we were only 2,000ths of a second ahead of Alonso there, and everyone is right on our tail, but goodness me, we are looking mighty here in Saudi Arabia right now as we progress at the expense of Lando Norris, who I'm sure would have been wanting to make it through into Q3 in that McLaren. Definitely should have the pace to be able to do so. Also knocked out Tsunoda, Gasly, Ricciardo and Albon, basically everybody else from those bottom 5 teams that hadn't already been knocked out, with the exception of myself, of course. We are doing bits here in Formula 1 right now, still calibrating the difficulty, of course. You would imagine that within sort of 3 or 4 videos we will be getting ourselves into a position where we can actually start to race around roughly where we should be. But who knows, maybe we'll have developed the car a lot by that point and we will actually be fighting in this position. But it's just about where we should be, right? As we do a 130.3 on a used set of soft compound tyres. That was only good enough for P10, so we're going to have to see if we can get the requisite level of improvement here to fight for a higher position than this, and maybe even a pole position, who knows. I'm not sure where I am in relation to Carlos Sainz right now, but I can tell you that if we improve by this much, we will probably just about beat him in qualifying, I think. So we're on course for maybe a top 5 here, potentially, if everything is to be believed. We're improving by 0.6 of a second, more than 0.6 of a second, in fact. It's going to be closer to 7, I think, as we cross the line. So 1:29.6, and that is good enough to put us in P4. So not quite pole position here. We miss out at the final hurdle, but you know, I would have to say that I am still very, very happy to be on the second row of the grid.
Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So it is, of course, Max Verstappen. He is inevitable, setting a 1:29.3 there ahead of Oscar Piastri, and Fernando Alonso getting himself into P3. So a great result from the Spaniard there. But we do out-qualify our compatriot George Russell, beat him to P4. We'll be starting on the second row of the grid. Hopefully we won't go quite as backwards as we went at the early stages of the Bahrain Grand Prix. But now it is time to see what we can do as we get into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
So here we are then, welcoming you today to one of the jewels of the Arab world. Jeddah, one of the biggest cities in Saudi Arabia, second only to Riyadh, gateway to Mecca. One of the biggest ports in the region, and now host to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So let's take a look at a topographical map of the Jeddah Street Circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Oscar Piastri completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Fernando Alonso, Robinson, Russell, Perez, Sainz, Stroll, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, Tsunoda, Gasly, Ricciardo, Albon, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Bottas, Joe and Logan Sargent. And now it's time to head down to the track. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes, delighted to say joining us for this intriguing race is Anthony Davidson. Well, you never like to be brutal, but it's not been a good time of it behind the wheel. How does the driver turn the page there? Well, it's all about forgetting last time, because that was a bit of a shocker. How do they change the story today?
You've got to put it behind you. Whatever happened last time, I was always told as a driver, park it, forget about it. Obviously, feel the pain when it happens, but then you can't dwell on it and carry that through to the next race. So put it behind you and just crack on with this race coming your way now.
After the points finished last race, let's aim to keep that momentum going.
And I think that's a very good target, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that, you know, points finish last race, I think there's no reason why we shouldn't aim for another points finish here today. Initially, I was going to do a 1-lap undercut, but then I decided, you know what, actually, I think we'll be able to do a 2-lap undercut. The tyre wear here is exceptionally low, actually. 24 laps the mediums are projected to be able to do. 40 laps the hards are projected to be able to do. Part of me was like, maybe I should be starting on softs here based on that evidence, because even they could do 13 laps around a track like this, so I could potentially have done like a soft hard or a soft medium. But in the end, we've decided to do what it seems like most other people are doing, which is going to be a medium hard, and hopefully that will prove to be the right strategy to be on. Obviously, we kind of got the strategy pretty nailed on last race. You know, we started on those hard compound tyres. We did a 1-stop when everybody else was doing a 2-stop. That enabled us to push hard and hold on to position at the end of that race. This time, a bit more normal. We'll see what we can do as the lights come on. And the lights go out. And I think we've had an okay getaway this time, although George Russell has had a very good start there by the looks of things. And he's already made his way up into P5. We're coming under pressure here from Sergio Perez as well, who's going to try and go around the outside of us, but we are going to have the outside on the exit of the chicane there, which I think might just allow us to keep Sergio Perez behind. So it has been a markedly better start than in Bahrain, where we lost 4 positions on the opening lap. This time, only losing 1 position. So I've still yet to make up a place at the beginning of a race so far, but you know, we are in a Haas starting drastically out of position as we get onto the curb a little bit too much there and very nearly find ourselves in the barrier immediately. So we're going to have to just calm down a little bit, you know, less haste, more speed, all that kind of thing, and try and hold on to the position that we've got as best we can. Obviously, we beat Sergio Perez last race, so it would be absolutely incredible if we could do that here today, but something tells me that is going to be easier said than done, as it is currently Max Verstappen leading Oscar Piastri and Fernando Alonso top 3 unchanged. George Russell currently trying to break out of that DRS range from me. If I could stay in that DRS range, that would be absolutely ideal, but as we make our way through the first lap here, it's looking less and less likely. Obviously, you would expect that these cars around me would be about a second lap faster there or thereabouts. So yeah, at the moment, really just not seeming like I've really got the pace to contend with the top cars here today, at least in race trim. In qualifying, obviously, we absolutely did, but in race trim, it's a different story. It's a lot harder to deliver those, you know, single laps of magic, lap on lap on lap here, especially when you're racing wheel to wheel with the cars around you. As you can see, we're coming under a bit of pressure here from Charles Leclerc as well, but we do just about manage to keep him behind. Sergio Perez has got ahead of us, of course, and yeah, I think we can probably say goodbye to him by the looks of things. Although, you know, we make our way to the end of lap number 2 and we have stayed in range of him with that DRS. Charles Leclerc, however, is still closing us down. Looks like he might go for a move into the final corner here. Meanwhile, Alonso there, you can see, is locked up quite dramatically into the final corner, and now he is just barely in front of Sergio Perez. George Russell making his way onto the podium. Meanwhile, I think Piastri and Verstappen are battling tooth and nail over that first place spot as well. Alonso overtaken by Perez there. The Spaniard now down into P5, having started P3, and we were hoping that maybe we'd be able to find an opportunity to get ahead of them there, but I don't think we're quite going to be able to do it on this lap. Lap number 3 comes to an end here, and you can see that Sergio Perez and Fernando Alonso are probably too far ahead for me to really think about going for a move on either of those guys. But Sergio Perez is going to get ahead of Fernando Alonso once again, and meanwhile, I think that Leclerc might look for a move on us here. We're going to see if we can do what we did to him earlier in the race, but this time, you know, I had to leave him some room on the outside, otherwise we were going to squeeze him into the wall, and he perfectly exploited that to be able to make his way into P6. So we're just going further and further back in this race right now. We're not making any progress, and instead we are just falling further and further down the order. We get an objective, mid-race objective, to cool the engine a little bit, avoid it staying above a certain temperature for more than 10 seconds per lap. That objective, the way you read it, seems a bit misleading, if I'm perfectly honest, because it sounds like they want you to spend at least 10 seconds a lap with the engine not above 136 degrees, but what it's actually saying is they want you to spend a maximum of 10 seconds per lap with the engine above that temperature. So yeah, unfortunately, I was not really on the ball there, because I was still focusing on making sure that I was, you know, protecting the engine, and as a result, we've lost 3 positions during that DRS zone. We fell out of DRS range to Leclerc in front, and that allowed his teammate Carlos Sainz Fernando Alonso's teammate Lance Stroll and Lando Norris to pounce, and we have now been pushed down into P10 as a result of that. So yeah, maybe I should pay more attention to what's actually going on the track around me, because we are about to fall out of the points now with the way that this race is going. But either way, we we hold on to the position for the time being, move on to lap 7, and you can see that Lando Norris is going for a move on Lance Stroll, and we thought to ourselves, screw it, why don't we go for a move on him as well? We go up the inside and push him round to the outside on the exit of the chicane. But once again, we just suffer that same problem that we did last time, where on the exit of the chicane they just seem way OP on the traction basically compared to us. But then again, that is partially probably to do with the fact that we are in a Haas and they are in the top 5 teams on the grid. But here we are involved in this DRS train still, just behind Lance Stroll, who I think we do have a good chance of beating here today potentially. And as we make our way onto lap number 9, we are going to be coming into the pit lane for a set of hard compound tyres, which we'll be taking to the end of the race, and hopefully we'll be able to pull off a bit of an undercut on the cars that are around us. Obviously Lewis Hamilton was behind us, but if we can undercut the likes of Stroll, Sainz, maybe Leclerc, all of those guys, I think we could be in for a good race here today. Maybe sort of P6, P7 again could be on the cards if we can hold them behind. But we've had a slow pit stop, unfortunately, nearly 2 seconds slower than the estimated stop time was going to be. That's not going to be fantastic for us. That may really hinder our chances of pulling off an undercut on anyone who's going to box on this lap number 10. But I think we should still be able to pull off at least a little bit of an undercut. But it certainly will probably loosen the effect of the undercut, if I had to imagine. There are a few of the front runners coming in. Verstappen and Norris boxing at the end of lap number 10. We'll see what the gap is compared to these guys. They were obviously quite close to us before we boxed, and you can see that Verstappen has come out just ahead, but we are wheel to wheel with Lando Norris, and the only thing that's going to save him is having that outside line. Once again, we had to give him some space, and that proved to be our undoing, unfortunately. So yeah, Lando Norris making his way up into what is P17 at the moment, but obviously still a lot of cars yet to box. They said that thing about Norris being ahead of us, but the objective is actually to overtake Tsunoda before lap 16. Given that Tsunoda hasn't boxed yet, I will say that this is probably a very achievable objective. I'll be very surprised, in fact, if we don't achieve this. So yeah, we're just going to see what we can do and hope for the best as we make our way through on lap number 11. We're going to try and close up as best we can to Norris and Verstappen, who are being held up by the Red Bull sister team driver, of course. I'm sure that Verstappen will not be very happy about this at all. Maybe he'll even complain over the radio saying they raced me so hard. But we are, I think, going to be able to pull off a move on Tsunoda here, along with Norris and Verstappen. And I even thought about looking for a move around the outside of Norris, but he's of course on those medium compound tyres. That's going to make it quite difficult to be able to do that. A few more cars are coming into the pit lane here on this lap. It looks like a few have stayed out here, but yeah, Alonso, Leclerc, Hamilton, all of those guys have come into the pit lane. Alonso's going to come out ahead of us, but Leclerc and Hamilton are actually going to be behind us, which means that we have managed to pull an undercut on Leclerc by the looks of things. And with Stroll and Sainz staying out as well, that's enabled us to pull an undercut on those guys. I think Russell did exit the pit lane ahead of us, unfortunately, so we missed out on the undercut on him. But we are battling away nicely with Norris and Alonso here. We're going to see if we can get ahead of either of these guys, but unfortunately they just go wheel to wheel through the corner, don't really hold each other up enough for me to be able to look for a move. All it was doing really was backing me into Hamilton and Leclerc, and you can see that eventually we fell out of that DRS range of the cars in front, and that is going to invite Hamilton and Leclerc into overtaking territory, which they oblige very easily and make their way up into P7 and P8 respectively. And well, that was basically it after that. I got overtaken by those two guys, and then they just kind of pulled away, extended that gap. The gap to Sainz and Stroll behind wasn't really coming down very much because they were battling with one another tooth and nail, trading positions all the time. So yeah, I was just kind of ending up in more and more of a no man's land, to be honest, after that point. They were continuing to pull away. They were in an 8-car DRS train in front, which I believe is currently being headed by Sergio Perez, so he's done a pretty good job starting P6 in this race to come through the field and attack. Verstappen as well, I think, is right up there. He's kind of worked his way back to the field after having a difficult time and things at the end of the first stint. But yeah, as we come on to the final lap of the race, you can see the gap behind 5 seconds, the gap in front 4 seconds. We are just completely in a league of our own right now, quite frankly. The thing I can say with pretty big confidence that I'm quite happy about is that, the cars that we were racing with today were the front pack. We were not racing with anybody, Alpine, RB, Williams, Sauber or our teammate Nico Hülkenberg. So yeah, we didn't even see any of these guys in the race, apart from when we overtook Tsunoda when he had that, he'd yet to box when we had that objective on him. So yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about the pace that we're showing at the moment, and even as we continue to make things harder for ourselves as time goes on, I still think we will be able to compete at the top level, hopefully. So as we come on the run to the line, it will be P9 here today in Saudi Arabia. Another solid points finish in this Haas. 2 points finishes to kick off my first season in Formula 1. And yeah, you've got to be pleased with that. Verstappen picking up driver of the day for working his way back through the field after that initial difficulty, and a P9 for us.
And that brings the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to a close then, as we reflect on the team's impressive performance today.
They had to be decisive with their overtaking today as they worked their way through the field. And those kind of race victories are so enjoyable because it's not just like winning from the front. They really had to work for it today.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. It's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
And this just goes to show how good Red Bull are. Verstappen had those difficulties in the middle of the race. Perez obviously started all the way down in P6, but yet they've come through for a 1-2 on the grid, and this is an absolutely incredible recovery for them after a very difficult race in Bahrain. Piastri gets on the podium as well in P3, so I'm sure he'll be very happy about that. But yeah, they have definitely got ahead of us in the Constructors' Championship now. The time we spent ahead of them was very, very short-lived, as it turns out.
I'm equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula 1. Be sure to join us for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, they actually picked up the maximum amount of points they could this weekend, because Verstappen actually got the fastest lap there by about a second by the looks of things over everybody else. So that's absolutely remarkable from Max Verstappen. Meanwhile, Hülkenberg apparently had some shadow DNF at some point during that race that I just didn't see. At no point in that race do I remember there being 19 drivers in the race, so I can only assume maybe that happened after I'd already crossed the line or something, like he crashed, or I don't know. But yeah, Hülkenberg ended up not finishing that race apparently, so more points for me in the rivalry, I guess. Meanwhile, we've been jumped by Perez and Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, as well as everybody else who was already ahead of us. We've pushed down to 5th in the Constructors' Championship, but by virtue of finishing position, I guess. I don't really know, because Hamilton and Russell finished ahead of me in this race. But either way, we've stayed ahead of Mercedes for the time being, so that's nice. Maybe that's done by who has the higher individual driver or something. I'm not 100% sure, because I am ahead of both of the Mercedes drivers, obviously, if we're equal on points, and Hülkenberg is yet to score in this season. But yeah, I mean, look, this has been a remarkable start to our Formula 1 career at the moment. I've got to be very, very happy with the way things are going in this career mode so far. I know a lot of people will say you're just on too low a difficulty, but like realistically, there's not very much higher I can go from here. We're on 103. I can only push it up 7 more points. I don't think that's going to make that big of a difference, but if I'm personally very honest with you, I can't see a world in which that's going to make a massive difference. Yes, obviously it probably will push me down a little bit, but once you get beyond 100, there's only so much that it changes. It doesn't really change that much. The racecraft was really, really good. We raced really well with all the cars around us. Definitely looked like we could mix it in Formula 1, which, usually there's a bit of a betting in process. That doesn't seem to really be happening here. So, yeah, you've got to be pretty pleased with that. And I can only hope that this continues. Obviously, once again, we finished quite significantly higher than that expected finishing position of 16th, so we will be bumping the difficulty up again, up until the point where I'm finishing, sort of 14th in the average race, so that kind of thing. But, we will have a few more difficult races coming up. I think Australia will be quite nice for us, but Japan I could definitely envision being a bit of a harder one for me, despite the fact it's been one of my stronger tracks in previous years' games. It seems like it's a little bit harder. The AI may be a little bit better on this year's game from what I've been able to glean from it so far, the limited running I have done at Japan. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. And then obviously, yeah, we'll have a few more difficult ones coming up, like Miami and races like that. Even Imola is not a particularly strong circuit for myself. Baku obviously not on the calendar till much later in the year, so that's something that we can look forward to when it comes. And yeah, I mean, the season, the 24 race season that we find ourselves in at the moment is long, so anything can change over the course of the next 22 races. You know, we could easily not score another point for the rest of the season, as it you know, often seems like it will be the case with Haas. They definitely do develop backwards over the course of a season, it feels like sometimes. So we'll see whether that's the case or not. I'm happy to report the pace glitch is in fact fixed. Because we've made our way up to 78 rating on pace now, and we are well on our way to a high overall rating. I am starting to feel now like I should have actually set that higher target that I planned for myself, but obviously I didn't know when they were going to fix that pace glitch when I set the initial rating goal. They fixed it very quickly, obviously. It was literally after my very first race in Formula 1 it got fixed. So yeah, that's a little bit of annoying, but you know, we can always review our contract if we reach that target nice and early, so we'll see what we can do. I think the fastest lap thing is still slightly broken, because I was actually 1.4 seconds slower than the fastest lap, and it said I was faster than everyone by a second. So I really don't understand how they keep getting it so wrong, but you know, it is what it is, I guess, and we will see if they address anything with it further. But yeah, for the time being, overall rating starting to improve even more, and yeah, it looks like we're going to be doing really well in this rivalry with Nico Hülkenberg as well. Not seeing any of the sort of rivalry stuff here, of course, but yeah, I would be surprised if we don't win this based on the performance that we've been showing lately. We obviously get all the boosts for doing these things, apart from for the material fabrication planner, because to my surprise, we actually didn't wear out a set of tyres by 30% over the course of the race weekend, which if you'd have told me that before the race weekend, I'd have been like, there's absolutely no way we don't pass that. But yeah, we actually didn't. The tyre wear was really good around here, so yeah, that's a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. I'm not going to complain too much about it, and that is going to be it for this video. Next up will be Australia, so if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.